Welcome back to BCB Live. We're the safest station in the nation. Drive safe, Dave. You always do the introductions, and I don't want to take that from you, even when we're live. So go ahead and do it.
Hey, we got Todd Millitzer here, who's actually been in the trucking business for quite some time as a CFO, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you are boarding on with a new company here in a while, but you've been doing trucking 30 years. Kind of what has that entailed over the last 30 years?
Oh, a lot of change. A lot of change in technology. It's been nice to really see different parts of the industry. I've spent some time in the reefer business, a lot of time in the car haul business, a lot of LTL along
A lot of LTL, yeah.
But really just kind of going from the technology that's available to the carriers, not only in the accounting side, but from even the safety side has been very encouraging.
Yeah, I want to make sure we bring in, too, the fact that he did attend a Christian college, UT, right? Where they lay hands on you there. Talk about the coach. So never mind. We'll leave that go. Hey, so here we go. So Central, right? Yes. You were at Central Freight Lines. When they shut down as a CFO, what were your thoughts on that?
Oh, I hated that. It was a 90-plus-year-old company, a lot of longtime employees who'd been with the company, a lot of really good people with that organization. I think they did as much as they could to keep that company afloat. When I got there, it was listing pretty heavily, and I was just amazed at the fact they were keeping it running and the effort they had there. But it's just a tough environment, and when you've got the debt levels that you have, it's just kind of hard to.
It is, and I think too, you brought up technology, the change in technology. I think at some point with them companies that have been around a long time, it's hard to get technology involved into them companies, right?
It is. It is. When you have legacy systems that you don't want to change and you don't have the funds because of debt and systems, you can't afford the investment. But you got to make that investment to stay current and stay
competitive. I mean, actually, you got to go out there to be competitive and to make those numbers. We look at that kind of stuff. That's happened on several large companies, that scale shutdowns, and Central's just one of them. I mean, there's been several that have created, wreaked havoc in the industry, or not really
I
havoc.
don't even know. So I know we're getting off key here, so I probably started to apologize, but Consolidated Freightways, I was part of that company. They shut it down, and I would have thought that it would have, that was going to wreak havoc.
And it really
didn't.
Yeah, everybody just.
Yeah, isn't it amazing how freight can get swallowed up when a big boy, these were two big companies, when they go out of business, that we as an industry can figure it out, and we do tend to figure it out, that freight gets swallowed up to some degree.
Well, the freight, also the driver base.
Yeah, especially.
And it's fortunate for the company to shut down like that when things are good, where there's demand for the drivers, that the drivers can go off and find jobs. If that happens during a low period, it's tougher on these drivers, and it's tough. You spend a lot of time with drivers. I've spent a lot of time talking to them in the field, and sometimes they'll call me on various issues, but they're good, hard-working people in this industry.
Oh, for certain.
I've really had a great appreciation for the role of the driver, and you hate to see that, or even office personnel or anyone else.
There's no doubt about it. All right, so CFO, and I'm curious, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way. Talk to me how safety and CFO even go together.
Well, they go very well together. You look at the insurance and claims line. That's it's pretty significant expense for a company, but it's also one that is very variable. A lot of factors that can change that, particularly if a company is partially self-insured or fully self-insured, for that matter. So I got involved in that back when I was with refrigerated transport. Looking at a claim, we had a $250,000 deductible. You get a claim that you pay. You didn't have that on the radar, and all of a sudden you have to explain a $250,000 expense in your financial statements.
Yeah.
That even though the company's doing well, it still is a pretty significant hit to that level.
Yes.
So you take a look at that and say, well, how many other of those are out there? And you start gathering loss data, try to put together some sort of a reserve. And as we look into that, and you're trying to handicap a cost that you can change until it's finally resolved, you just don't know what that is. So you take some time to try to learn more about that segment of the claims handling scenario, trying to get better information there. And not only do you have better explanation for the financials, but you really set up a liability so the company knows that it has to have funds available to pay some of these claims.
And these claims, and as you're talking about, these claims have gone upwards. I mean, they're not leveled off. They're not kind of a standard. they just continue to crawl upward and upward and upward
It
on
can be
their.
exponential in that matter.
Yeah.
So you look at the cost of medical goes up. Now that's going to affect claims because people get hurt. You've got to compensate them for those the repairs of the vehicles, but just the litigious nature of the industry has really put a lot of pressure on those claims.
And really, to me, it's the medical part. I think the punitive is really where it's really changed the whole scope of the way we look at an accident. And the whole scope of what we look, what it's going to cost. Because when they start getting into those punitive damages, the punishment part of it, instead of just he's going to need surgery. That's not what we're talking about here anymore. We're talking about we're going to make an example of this company.
Exactly, and that's where the company really has to have its ducks in a row going forward. They've got to have a good safety program. They've got to make sure that their people throughout the organization have a safety culture that doesn't push the drivers too much, doesn't do anything that, when you look at punitive, there's a negligence component to that.
Of course.
And you want to be able to avoid that, and you want the entire company to be able to realize that there's a limit to what we can push the drivers to do, and you just don't ever want to get in one of those compromising situations when you're settling or even at trial.
Yeah.
Where that can become one of those nuclear verdicts that we read about.
Yeah, for certain. And you brought up the word safety culture. Safety when there's an accident. I mean, so many companies, they stop right there at the safety department. What are your thoughts on that? When an accident happens, I mean, safety culture means that we've got to go back and relook at the entire process. What happened? What's that root cause? It's not just the safety manager. It's not just the dispatcher. It's each and every one of us. It does affect us. Talk to me a little bit about safety culture and I guess, why we don't stop or say, hey, it's only the safety manager.
No, there's so many factors that go involved in an accident. I think really, if you look at the long-term statistics, if the risk rates are too high, then you need to look at the safety department and see whether or not that's really working. But I think the whole company has that role into it. Some of the best organization structures I've seen in this industry are those that usually a three-legged chair approach, where you've got the company goals, which include finance on one of the legs. You've got the drivers and operation on another. You've got customers on another. And you really don't want any of those legs to be longer or shorter than the other. But the top of that chair has got to be safety.
Yep.
And those three legs are supporting that operation there. So when I look at my finance department, we want to do what we can to promote that culture. I mean, we don't have that many touches in that, but we need to talk to a driver. You want to make sure you're not interrupting them on the phone and distracting them in that matter. We want to set our productivity goals in such a way that we're not really pressing too hard on the drivers that are productive. If a guy's working a full week and doing those numbers, you don't really want to get that extra amount out of him. You want to go to the guys that are for whatever reason, are not producing from the low end to try to raise that up. So you got to be able to be cognizant of that. I think operations too needs to be able to share in that and really cooperate with the safety department. So even though safety is they're kind of primarily responsible for those results, they're not going to be able to do it alone. You set a set of rules, or you have to bring a driver in to talk to him, maybe even terminate him if it's a bad enough situation. Operations needs to support that. So there's a lot of there's millions of decisions that are made during the course of the year with the trucking company. Many by the drivers, many by operations, and it's the entire organization that needs to keep that safety in mind as well as their other functions.
And we're talking about this, and I do believe that. I think it's a holistic approach. I think it's everybody. I think it's involved. But why? Let's just jump over to the finance department. Why do they need to be involved in all of these steps? How does it benefit the company if the finance department is involved in the safety culture?
I think from my perspective, again, I started looking at this really to be able to measure some of the losses and be able to have an understanding of where those losses are coming from. A lot of feedback that we can provide going back to the safety department. I've probably attended about 40 mediations on trucking accidents over the years. Started there just to really become a decision maker in the room. I understand more about how the settlement process works, which allows me to be able to assess the reserves better. But there's a lot of feedback that comes back that you might not otherwise be able to attain. If there's an issue that's problematic in settling a claim, I can bring that back. It could be a situation with a delivery location or the way that deliveries are made that puts a truck into a precarious situation. It could be something in the qualification standpoint. So having someone who can help negotiate a better settlement for the company, but also be able to be aware of what got us there in the first place, what issues may need to really be brought to their attention to avoid that situation in the future.
Yeah, you bring up some great points in there. And to the trucking companies that are out there listening to this right now, so many times from a sales perspective or from a dispatch or a planning in an operation standpoint, we look at the rates and we pat ourselves on the back because, we just had a great rate per mile on that. All of that goes away with an accident.
It does.
All of that goes away, and sometimes you've got to make that big boy, that big girl decision that says, you know what, my driver's just not going. And some of the things that you can bring to the table, that loss history, helps us identify some of these things. Hey guys, listen, we were running some numbers on the finance side, and we see that when we run, if you look at this next 3-month period, we've had 6 accidents, major accidents that had claims, that had cargo claims, that had injuries on it over the wind. Hey, how about we do something different on this? Because if we repeat that, that's no different than taking 20 cents less a mile. That's the cost that it's going to have on this company. I think that those meetings have to take place with us folks in operations, with the sales team as well, that says no matter what, safety is going to come first at this company.
It's got to.
Life, because there's no price you can put on the life, let alone when it goes to that arbitration or goes to court or any of that stuff right there. You're not going to win that battle in there. So I can see that today more than ever, how that value you must bring to that company's operation. Now the tricky part is, how do you make them understand it? How do you get them to buy into it, right?
Well, exactly. And we in finance, we'll come up with metrics and all that. You've got to be able to have a cause and effect for some of those metrics. The CSA scores are good to see, and you can tie some of these other metrics into where are the CSA scores and how does that affect the likelihood of accidents down the road. I think that's where we can provide some more of an analytical type approach. But you've got to be able to explain it to not only to the drivers, to the owners, to the operations team. Also, we're involved in the negotiation of insurance rates, and also the setting of how much risk is this company going to take. And you'll go through that process every year. The insurance companies often will try to indicate to you where they think the risk would be. We've got to be able to have that type of information available to management to be able to determine, do we want to take more risk? Do we want to increase our deductibles? Do we want to lower them? And a lot of that really has to do with where our trends are going, how our culture is going. If you have a better safety history, you've got, again, you're never really going to be able to predict anything, but if you have all the numbers are going the right trend, where you're going to kind of beat the market from a safety standpoint. It makes sense to take a little more risk.
No, I agree. You can tell as a company how you're doing, how those trends are looking. Are they trending up? Are they trending down? The frequency, right? Yes. It tells a big story. Sometimes, you may not have that big accident, but if your frequency continues to climb, odds are that it's just around the corner. You're headed the wrong way. You've got to look at that. So, love the CSA scores. Love that. That whole insurance thing, it's mind-boggling to me. So you've been with different size companies.
Yes.
So you probably have been fully insured. Were you guys self-insured?
Yes.
You've had any captive?
I've been with a captive.
And then open market. Explain to me what's the difference and what's your favorite?
I think they all have their own benefits and detriments. I kind of like the captive scenario in one way, and mostly because you really got to see how an insurance company works. Mm-hmm. You get the board book, you're looking at that, you see the financial statements, you can really pull together the understanding that total premiums don't necessarily mean that they're all going to offset risk.
Yep.
If you understand that there's a administrative cost, that there's commissions and other matters there, then you can start understanding what type of losses are acceptable to the insurance company that will either favorably or unfavorably affect the renewal in the next year. I think there's some things that you need to watch out on those. You want to make sure that you're not sharing risk with a bunch of other companies that are going to cause that to backfire.
Choose your neighbors wisely, right? You can't do that.
It does.
They may be buddies, but not not in that
No,
regard.
but I think there's some captives that do a good job of providing resources for the safety department to supplement what they're doing, holding their members accountable. I remember one of my owners at the captive, right when I joined there, he was at a meeting. He called me up and said, "Hey, we can get kicked out of this captive if our numbers are too bad." Well, my response was, "Let's not make our numbers too bad."
Yep, there you go.
And we used that and had some very good metrics that we actually utilized to measure the safety department and held that we wanted to be in the top quartile of our of the members in
Yep.
that particular captive. And we're doing that. We've got some good benchmarking to go on, and again, just an indication that we're trending in the right direction.
You know, and as we talk about this, I think the technology that you were talking about before, and I think it's only going to benefit us in being able to make better decisions overall, and with all these numbers. I think not only with ELD and with the new data that's coming in and all of these hard breaks and stuff that you can read off of, see the videos, see and all these other things are going to make it a whole lot better to be able to either increase your safety culture for the better and go in the right direction, or it's also going to help you make better decisions also in cost analysis.
Oh, exactly. We can see what drivers did. We could do better utilization statistics. You look at out or route miles, and you look at if the driver's going too far out or route, you're just increasing the risk of having an accident
Yes, you are.
during those times. And being able to track the drivers and what they're doing, what their tendencies are is helpful. I think being able to see, being able to track their hours and really realizing if they're out of hours for whatever reason, putting a stop to them. I think the cameras are great. I don't know how many times I've been in a mediation where it's one of those he said, she said type of rear end, and you know your driver's telling the truth. But unless you've got that pure evidence, sometimes it's hard to get that past a jury. So we've seen many a times where you'll have an accident, you'll get a response from the insurance company, you throw in that video that said that your driver pulled in front of us and hit. That probably avoids a lot of dollars right there, just being able to put that claim to rest and not even have to worry.
And at least you know where you're at, no matter what. I mean, the video, you know where you're at 100%. You're either, you know where you need to be, and you know what you've got to do.
You do. As you go into a settlement negotiation, you want to know that truth. You don't want to really come up with any surprises. If our driver did it, give in on liability. There's other issues that you can work on to try to get a good settlement over there. But if not, and there's some contested liability, you want as much information as possible so that you're making the right decision and assessing the settlement properly.
All right. Well, we do have to roll. We got safety still coming up here as well.
Yeah, we do.
Did you know, would you have ever thought that a CFO would be involved with safety the way I wanted to hear that side from you? Because it's intriguing to a lot of people in operations, and that I think they see CFO as an accountant. Right? I mean, sometimes we see that title, another bean counter.
Yeah.
You know what?
They're not real people.
Yeah, I know, but I'm telling you,
they don't know what a truck is.
They have more care for safety than most people would ever imagine, because safety is a big part of your job.
It definitely is, yes.
It's straight cash, homie. Right? Straight cash, homie.
Yeah, no one likes writing those big checks.
No one likes writing big checks.
All right. Hey, we're coming back. We have safety coming up next on BCB Live, the safest